While some Nigerians, especially those in the northern part of the country, are kicking against President Bola Tinubu's tax reform bills, some others have joined a greater majority of the citizens to hail the president's visit to France. They say the visit demonstrates the strong relationship between Nigeria and France and will create opportunities for both countries to explore trade, investment and development partnerships. Tinubu's visit comes at a time when France is seeking to bolster its relationships with African countries amid increasing geopolitical competition on the continent, with a growing sway of China and Russia. According to Governor Mba of Enugu State, who was on the Nigerian delegation to France, he emphasized the importance of such high-level engagements in driving growth and development at both national and state levels. Joining us now as we take a look at the state of the nation of Nigeria amid the president's bilateral visit to France is Kenny Okolugbo, a former commissioner of Delta State Oil Producing Area Development Commission, the SOPADEC, and currently a consultant communications and strategy to the office of the Senate President. Good morning, Mr. Okolugbo, and welcome to the morning show.
It's good to be back to
I think even
a year ago I was here in December. The last time I was in the studio in Lagos.
Was it last year?
Yes.
In the studio, not on the program.
You're speaking to me from
because
Abuja.
you are a regular on this program.
You're speaking to me from Abuja, so it's good to be live. See you people live and seeing that you're very well.
Well,
I'm looking very well fed.
Ask Ayo about her plans for Boli and Guguru and Epa.
What do you mean by welfare?
No, in the midst of
what do you mean by
midst
welfare?
of the complaints in the country, you're looking very good.
Please withdraw that statement.
Anyway, at a time, Chad says it no longer wants defense cooperation with France. Senegal has shut down military bases belonging to France. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso are also against France. Then we see this romance between France and Nigeria. And it looks like France is trying to woo Nigeria, which used to be an old suspicious ally. And we're talking about investments. What is in it for Nigeria? Because foreign policy, after all, is about what is in it for you.
Oh, certainly, you're right. But before I quickly answer that question, I listened to your former guest when he was talking about the tax bill. And he said that the second reading was passed under the Deputy Senate President. No, the second reading was passed under the Senate President. What happened was that the Deputy Senate President presided when Taiwo Yedele actually came to, lecture, let me say more like a lecture, or elaborate on the new tax regime. And by the second sitting, which was done on Thursday, it was passed for second reading under the Senate President.
Don't worry, we'll get to that.
Yeah, I know we'll get to that.
I was worried that you wanted to talk about
no,
visit to France.
No, I'm talking about then I'm going to the visit to France. Yes, let's be realistic. You heard what Governor Mba said. Governor Mba clearly expatiated on it. Remember that the last time that the French president visited Nigeria was in 2018. He was received in Abuja by President Buhari, and he also visited then Governor Ambode in Lagos. What were the fruits, what were the benefits of that visit? I see that there was an increment in the trade deals between France and Nigeria. The fact that the France business transactions with Africa, 20% of it is done with Nigeria, clearly shows that there were some benefits, but were those benefits tangible? I don't think it was tangible, in my own opinion. And so by the time you see President Bola Tinubu having to go to France to be received, forget the effigy, let me put it that way, of the state's visit. He actually went there because he said Nigeria is open to investment. Mba clearly said, look, his urban water scheme already has a relationship with the France Development Finance Institution, and he only went to enhance it. Don't forget that Mba has put 4 aircrafts in his budget, in this year's budget, for Enugu Air. And Airbus, where is the headquarters of Airbus, is in Paris. My bank, Zenith, opened on the 29th of November.
Why do you say my bank?
In Francis. Okay, sorry, Zenith Bank. Let's not be like I'm promoting them now. But that is where I bank with. They opened on the 29th. And they not only opened, they opened the Zenith UK branch in Paris. And the UBA Bank also signed an agreement. These agreements might not have its immediate effect, but when you are talking about foreign direct investment, in the midst of the fact that a lot of foreign direct investment, a lot of companies have left Nigeria, and you're looking to attract more of this foreign direct investment, there can't be a better spokesperson than the president, who has gone there to say, look, we are open for business, please come and invest, and let us have these people bring in the needed investment and the needed foreign exchange that can bring down the value of our naira. That can show up the value of our naira.
All right, so some highlights of that visit, because of course what we always talk about when the president travels abroad on taxpayers' funds is show workings. What are the benefits of these trips if he will go? One of which is the MOU signed between Nigeria and France on mining, in the mining industry, in mining
the mining
sector.
value chain.
Yes, and then also a 300 million euros investment in healthcare, some critical infrastructure. Again, it's not just about these elaborate show of signing MOUs.
Yeah.
How can we leverage or ensure that these partnerships that are being signed, being entered into, is maximized by us in Nigeria? Because we saw that delegation. There was a large delegation from Nigeria going there. So what are the next steps? What should we begin to do? It's not just about signing MOUs. We want to see the implementation or the effecting the details of the deals.
Oh, certainly, you're very correct. But you see, one thing I liked about this delegation was that it was more private sector driven.
Sure.
There were more private sector people than the usual government officials who just come and they have no business in such a visit. Don't forget that we're in a country where 133 million Nigerians are said to be living in multidimensional poverty. You know that the inflation is at over 33%. Even though we have an increase in GDP now, which is a very welcome development, the NPR has just been increased to 27.50% because we're looking at how we can drive down inflation. That is according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, these visits are important for it to have its impact, like the MOU you talked about. If you're talking about the mining value chain, that is one ministry that a lot of Nigerians have not been happy with, I must tell you the truth, because it is supposed to be the alternative to oil. And, he has put in somebody like Alake, who naturally one should have thought should have been speaking for him, to man that ministry, and you must know that there must have been a reason why he put in Alake there. And I'm sure Alake has this drive. Last time, you remember, he said he had generated 16 billion. But 16 billion naira is a drop in the ocean compared to us talking about a budget of 47.5 trillion, which is in a medium-term expenditure framework at 1,400 exchange rate and a benchmark of $75. How do you achieve that? People are already shouting about borrowing, that they're borrowing too much to meet up with the budget, even though 9.something trillion was put in the last budget in terms of borrowing to show up with the GDP. So these MOUs must come now, must bring in funds, foreign funds. You notice Aliko Dangote was there, Pua was there, Tony Elumelu was there. Yeah. You could see that the president was like, it was like an alarm. It was like, to me, it was more like, look, these are my best. Yeah. I want you to see them. Please come, let us do this business. And don't forget that he's also taking advantage of the frosty relationship between the Sahel region and France. Yeah. And I don't see anything bad if he's taking advantage of that frosty relationship. Yes, the Sahel region says France has exploited them in all their relationships before now. Nigeria will not allow France to exploit them. France too is learning from the way the Sahel regions have resisted them, have said, no, we are not having any relationships with you anymore, both in terms of military, both in terms of business. And so they'll be very careful with dealing with Nigeria as regards its MOU. So when you look at the mining value chain, which was signed, we expect that apart from the exchange programs, which are talking about the Nigerian students who are in the mining schools and all that, we're looking at critical sectors of mining where we don't have people in Zamfara having Chinese, Indians, and others doing illegal mining, and we are saying, oh no, we have a whole lot of gold deposit, we have iron ore, we have bitumen, we have so much of this industry which can turn into trillions. That is, I think, what
let me just ask you that question. That is Nigeria
open? Minister.
Are we open for business? That's what the president said.
Yes.
That we are open for investment. We are ready for business.
Yes.
But in order to, that's why I asked that. Okay, what are the next steps? The economic climate has to be friendly for investors to come in. I like what you talked about, the mining sector, the northern part, but we also know we have a big challenge with security in that area. So access to those pits, in the instance, it has been largely, we've been talking about that for a long time. Have we put in place measures to ensure that when the investors do come, the economy is viable, there's a viable investment atmosphere for them to do business?
Oh, that's a very key question, because if you don't have peace and security, you can't do business. That is why it is important, and that is why it behaves on the National Security Advisor and all the chief of staffs, starting from the chief of defense staff, to shore up security in those areas. If you notice, the Zamfara governor has been crying so much as regards the security in that area. Yeah. But there's been an improvement. But is that improvement enough? No. But you can't say because you don't have security now, you won't say they should come. They should come while you are working on the issue of the security, because it's a sector that is going to, if we're talking about Nigeria beyond oil, mining is going to be one aspect that is going to take us beyond oil. And a lot is on Alake's shoulders in terms of performance. Maybe he's also feeling the heat from Nigerians who have seen that sector has not performed below their expectation. Yeah. And he says, oh, I've been in the office for a little over 1 year because he didn't start with I'm not his spokesperson, but he didn't start with the governor. With the president, so to say. And the president has looked at it and said, look, if we sign this mining value chain, there might be light at the end of the tunnel. And Nigerians will see, maybe before my 4-year tenure is over, a significant investment coming from the mining sector that we can look at and say, okay, look, our GDP has been shot up. Because what is GDP is simply trade between countries, your net exports and your net imports.
You were saying that Nigeria will not open their eyes to allow France to exploit them. Organa lie. France is the master exploitationist. They've exploited all your neighbors around you. They've been doing this game of exploitation and colonialism for a long while. Mm-hmm. They are more vast in the game of exploitation. See, the question is, what are the tangibles? There were no tangibles. MOU is not a tangible. You said the Zenith Bank went to open there. You were the one that went to open in France and UBA. You are going to pay rents. You are going to pay taxes. You are putting your visibility there. Technical assistance of 300 million and all of that is technical assistance. Technical assistance can be prorated to 300 million. Part of that technical assistance, they can say, oh, they are bringing one technology to be able to train you. It's part of the 300 million. They determine that. There's no real investment injection. MOU in mining sector, say nothing as far as I'm concerned. Is there any tangible? Are you bringing $2 billion to invest in the lithium mine? Are you bringing $3 billion and you are breaking ground with the projects? Mm-hmm. And that money is filtering to the economy. You are employing people and all of that. So as far as I'm concerned, I didn't see anything. You said aviation, what's it called? Defense partnership. Very nebulous.
No, I don't think
hang on a minute.
I talked about the defense partnership.
No. They said.
Yes, they said. Yes.
Very nebulous. I know there's Dosu there. Couple of defense companies on the CAC 40. Are you telling Dosu to come and set up aviation plant or fighter jet plant in Nigeria that they will bring money to the economy? Nothing of such happened. So this technical partnership of 300, nothing. I didn't see anything, no. Maybe show me, maybe I didn't see it, oh.
No, I think what I said earlier goes with what you're trying to say. The MOU on mineral value chain, nobody knows the details. It is important, when the details come, you can see what has been agreed. But there's no way they would have signed that MOU without a major investment in the mining sector.
Where is it?
You see, the mining sector has not reached 1/4 of its potentials. Let's not be pessimistic. Let's be a bit optimistic.
Where is it now?
Do you understand?
Me the deal.
Until the government, until Dela Alake comes,
listen,
it was just a statement that was made from Dela Alake's ministry. Let him come. That question will lie with him. Let him come and open up what it is. If there was no move at all, would you like it?
Can I give you instance?
At least a move was made.
Can I give you instance?
That you should appreciate.
Let me give you instance.
Yes.
This same government, when they went to Saudi last year, we saw workings. Let's show you the workings. SALIC, a Saudi-based governmental agency investing in agriculture, put money, over 2 billion in Olam. We saw it. Now, they are
but if they didn't make that move, that's Olam money will not have come.
Let me finish your gun now. I am telling you that this government made that move. So it shows you I'm not biased against the government.
So that's
when I saw that move, I acknowledge it.
Yes.
In this regard, there was nothing made.
No, you can't say it until you see the MOU for the mineral value.
Where
chain.
is the investment?
I think that should be put to the minister.
Where is the investment?
It's too early now, Rufai.
Too
Calm
early
down.
for what? It's not too early.
If the minister comes, you see what this program has just done is that it has challenged the minister now to give us a breakdown of what the MOU is.
If it's this program that is challenging the minister, then it was not ready in the
It's
first
2
place.
days now. 2 days.
I don't care.
When did they come back from
Give
France?
us the result of what you got out. It's not too early. If you signed a deal, if you had a deal,
Yes.
if France was coming, like France is doing a lot of uranium in Niger.
A whole lot, but they have stopped
Since
now.
Niger has kicked
They
them
have
out.
stopped, they've been
if
kicked out.
France is going to say, okay, we want to prospect uranium, we want to put 1 billion euros down, that's a deal.
But you haven't
Not
seen the
selling us tangible.
MOU now, Rufai. Maybe if you see the
There's
MOU, you
nothing.
might have billions.
Show me.
Don't just be
Dr. Abati.
pessimistic. Be a bit optimistic about it.
Yeah, show me what is
Okolugbo.
It's not
Yes.
pessimistic.
In 2011, President Jonathan was supposed to visit France. That was postponed. President Jonathan visited 2013.
Yes, I
was
remember
on
very
that
well.
trip.
Yes.
Now, that trip is almost the same pattern as this President Tinubu's trip. Élysée Palace and all of that, all the places they went to, we did the same thing. There was also a lot of talk about signing of understanding, blah, blah, blah. I think it was Africa Security Summit, and then bilateral meetings were held on the sidelines. In 2021, President Buhari was on an official visit to France. This was about post-COVID countries and all that. Also on the sidelines, there were meetings and memoranda of understanding were signed on technology, education, energy, and all of that. Now, President Tinubu, his is classified as state visit. And then again, memoranda of understanding signed, and everybody is dancing around. 120 companies, French companies, operate in Nigeria. Okay, they are doing business here.
Yes.
Okay, how many Nigerian companies are doing business in France? We have heard of Zenith Bank opening shop. We have heard of United Bank for Africa opening shop. Well, maybe there will be 1 or 2 small Nigerian businesses. But 120 to what? That's a big issue. And while you are addressing that, we would like your original thoughts on the tax bills before the National Assembly, and whether or not the public hearing that has been promised by the National Assembly would be one of integrity and accountability. Not that the kind of kangaroo public hearings that we have seen in the past with this same National Assembly, where they will advertise public hearing. The next day, they will say public hearing has taken place, and they will quickly pass the bills. This one cannot be done under the table,
Yes.
given the importance of the issues being raised by the people. Yeah. Those 2 issues.
Okay, you remember all these visits you talked about, the one for President Jonathan, the one for President Buhari. These were all done before France was kicked out by the Sahel region. All this period, you remember they had the working relationship with Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. Now, they are more like an endangered species in terms of investment in Africa. That's the absolute truth. So because of the resistance from the Sahel region, the relationship is not going to be the same. The terms are not going to be the same. They need us now more.
You don't do international relations on an
they need
episodic basis.
No,
countries that have bilateral relations.
Yes.
There is a framework. Government to government, administration to administration.
Definitely.
So don't peg it why? That's a different subject.
That's a different subject, I agree. But now they also have that at their mindset. Why do you think they're asking for the visit at this point in time when they do not have that same influence they've had on the Sahel regions? You must also put that in perspective, Dr. Abati. And now, looking at what has been done, it is clear that France also needs Nigeria. I agree with you. There is a great disparity in the companies that are doing business in Nigeria, the French companies that are doing business in Nigeria, and the ones that are doing business in France. I think it is a step that has started in the right direction. It's very negligible. You can't make the comparison, but something has started. So let us look at it that something has started. Now, going into the issue of tax, most people have not read this tax bill. You see, what happened in the Senate was that the first day the bill came, there was resistance from some of the northern senators, because this was a position that had been taken by the northern governors, and it was expected. But interestingly, it was the Deputy Senate President that presided that day. And eventually, they were actually, the Order 12 was suspended, and Rules 18 was brought in, which allows the Senate to regulate itself. The spokesman of the Senate has done some elaborate explanation about this. But basically, what was done was that by the time Nigerians listened to Taiwo Yedele, I think a lot of people who were against that bill realized that 1 million, those who are earning 1 million and below, meaning that those who are on the 70,000 threshold for minimum wage will not pay tax anymore. Companies that are earning 50 million turnover will not pay tax anymore. Company tax has been reduced from 30% to 25%. So let us look at the general gains that are there in the tax bill. First, there is no country in the world that succeeds without tax. Most of the countries in the world that you see infrastructural development and even developments in terms of outside infrastructure, even their recurrent, comes from tax. How is the king funded in the UK? How does America? Why is Trump talking about tariffs? I like the fact that you people talked about Trump and what he's talking about tariffs. That is also tax. Now, what the tax bill says is that 43 trillion or more is going to come from this new bill, from the 4 bills that have been brought. The Tax Revenue Service replacing the FIROS. Now you have the Joint Revenue Board. You have the appeal. And you have the ombudsman. And so what people should have looked at more is the substance. I think the National Orientation Agency has a lot of work to do in this regard, educating Nigerians on what this executive bill is. So by the time the Senate passed it for second reading, it has been committed to the committee led by Senator Sani Musa, the Committee on Finance. And they have 6 weeks, which means by the second week of January, they're supposed to report back to the Senate. 6 weeks is a long time to do public hearing. So I don't think there will be any public hearing that will be done under the carpet if you have 6 weeks. I expect that maybe by next week they will start advertising for public hearing. But the House of Rep, I read in Punch, I don't know whether it's true, have said that they have deferred their bill for tomorrow, and that they had a tape of an executive session where there was this disagreement. It's a bit disappointing that somebody would film a private executive session, a closed-door session of the House of Rep and release it to the public. But be as it may, you know that it is a concurrent house, it's a bilateral house. The Senate cannot act, alone. They must act in consonance with the House of Reps. So while maybe the Senate might read the mood of the House in terms of if it's to go for second reading and they will commit it to their own committee and have a joint committee for the public hearing, that might also cause a delay. It depends on what we're going to see this week, how it unfolds.
Well, thank you very much, Kenny Okolugbo, for joining us on the morning show.
It's my pleasure being in Lagos.
Fingers crossed with the tax bills and the public hearing.